Welcome back to Season 5 of Porcelain Peak, strange and scary podcast featuring Chop Talk, trivia, and deep dive main discussions into the odd and unusual.
Deep, unusual.
We are doing Summer Campocalypse, so I will be one of your counselors, Tone, and I'm joined by...
Counselor John.
And...
Internet Daddy Anthony.
Counselor.
Counselor. Internet Daddy Anthony.
Right.
Esquire.
And so for this week, Anthony's going to share some Chop Talk with us, some news about the genres. Then we are going to continue with our newest trivia game. And for our camp discussion, we're talking about The Road and Children of Men. So it's going to be a real uproarious good time.
Yeah, make sure you have a box of tissues ready.
Happy tissues or sad tissues?
Are those sad tissues or happy tissues?
Hey, I'm not here to judge.
Anyway, we hope that sounds interesting, and we'll get started with that Chop Talk.
Why don't you take an axe and chop it open?
Before we dive into that news, how you guys been doing this week?
Been doing pretty good. A little stressed out. I've been dealing with some new things at work, but that's all good. Everything's been big time chilling. I went on a little vacation. I went to Utah.
Oh, you did.
I went to Utah. I got to see the Great Salt Flats, which was fucking surreal.
Was it flat? Was it salty?
It was flat and it was salty.
Good.
Did you like it?
I'm good. You weren't lied. I'm glad you weren't lied to.
I didn't lick it. Kevin peed on it, so I didn't
His
want.
friend Kevin.
Yeah, my four-legged friend. And I didn't want to. I assume that there are other dogs that have done the same, so I didn't want to lick it.
Probably dinosaurs too, bro.
Whoa! But it looks like the fucking surface of the moon, and
Probably
because
was when they faked it.
because it's in a desert, the sun is so like bright. And because everything is so white, it reflects at such a level that like everything out into like the distance looks like it's like hovering.
I can
Like,
I can empathize as a very white person.
He always looks like he's hovering like a ghost.
Yeah,
That's funny.
I would imagine that it's not very fun to be out there for longer than maybe a half hour.
Yeah, from the pictures that you guys showed me, it looked awesome.
Yeah, it looks great. And
Like
then,
you said, it would be a great place to film something.
yeah.
And while you're out there, you went to a record shop and got me a Curtis Blow record player. Thank you.
Nice.
Them's the breaks.
I didn't get Curtis blown.
You're breaking the house rules.
No, it's making fun of Curtis Blow. Is not allowed in the house. I'm quoting him for self-satisfaction is fine. Anyway, how you been? You've been watching a ton of good movies. You and I kind of been talking back and forth about Vincent Price stuff, which has been fantastic. We watched kind of together House on Haunted Hill.
Yeah, that was super fun. After Monsterpalooza, I think I had mentioned this on the previous episode. It kind of pulled me back into wanting to watch a lot more horror, but I was like, man, I've seen like pretty much all there is to see or is worth seeing,
Especially
from
like
modern
80s
horror.
forward.
Exactly. So I happened to watch Dr. Terror's House of Horrors, which is Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, and a few other people. Great cast.
Yeah.
A bit misleading because it takes place on a train.
I'm gonna need somebody else to tell me about that cast.
He's getting Al Pacino step in.
It's got a great cast. Yeah, so once I watched that, I realized, like, just looking at the suggested, that there is just 10 million horror, black and white through color horror movies from the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s that I just have never gotten around to seeing. So that started me on Carnival of Souls, and then I was...
The original one?
Yeah, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
And then that got me into watching more Bela Lugosi and Karloff movies outside of Dracula and Frankenstein. And I had that kind of dumb epiphany that, oh shit, these guys are actually really, really great actors. Like, yeah, I just always imagine them, which is a bit embarrassing because I have Boris Karloff tattooed on me.
Yeah.
And I'd seen him in, like, The Mummy, but I had never really seen him act in a role where he gets to speak and do things. And the dude is just tremendous. And so is Lugosi's. And it's really cool to see them in movies together. And they've done a few movies. And so I was going down that road. And then I was like, fuck it. I'm doing the Corman Price post cycle. So that's 11 movies. I think I've seen four of them now. So Still got a ways to go, but the cool thing is too, most of those movies less than 90 minutes. Usually like 70 to 80 minutes, so you can pack in like 3 of them and not feel like. And so I'll bounce back and forth between a black and white one, a gaudy, colorful Poe price one,
like oversaturated.
And it's just been a ton of fun. And just seeing these actors like that I've always kind of idolized without ever really having seen their body of work, which I really could never with someone like Karloff, because he did like 80 movies before he did Frankenstein.
Holy
it's insane,
shit, dude.
Yeah, but
they used to just crank them out back then.
Tubi is a great option if you want to watch pretty much all of these movies. Tubi has like the entirety of Universal's 30s and then the 40s movies and the 50s. So that's a great option. A ton of them are on YouTube. And the Internet Archive is a great place too to look for a lot of these. Most of those Poe Corman cycle movies are on there. So I've been having a blast with them.
Prime has some good stuff too. That's where we watched House on Haunted. That's at least where I watch House on Haunted Hill.
Yeah, and
which I thought was fantastic. I haven't seen a ton of Price movies either, but I was like, oh yeah, you're super dope.
He's great too because he's all over the place. In some movies, he's playing like a dainty, like kind of effeminate aristocratic character, and then in another one he's playing like a sadistic torturer, like, you know, evil character, and then in some he's doing a bit of both. And he's great. Like,
he just has that
fantastic
iconic voice though too. I mean, it like hearing it just makes me like it's like a warm blanket.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been having a ton of fun with that, and outside of that, the only other thing that I wanted to address is I wanted to make a public statement and apology. As you'll notice, I'm wearing socks on this episode. And that's for a specific reason. We've had one too many comments about my feet or our feet. On the YouTube videos.
We got a new subscriber. So you finish that. I'm going to find out, and so we can shout
yeah,
out.
Okay. So it was making me feel a little bit self-conscious. The first one I was like, okay, you like those feet? All right, I'll flash them a little bit. And then after the second comment, I was like, maybe I put the feet away.
I say fuck them. Let your feet freak flag fly. Oh yeah, but just a little bit. Yeah. Just your heel.
Don't be a hussy.
We
Save
got
that for the Patreon.
Over on YouTube, new subscriber. Shout out to Roll3.
Thanks, Roll.
Yes, thank you, Roll.
Yeah.
Well, you guys want to talk about some news?
Yeah, let's hear it. What you got?
I don't know if we asked you how you're doing. You doing okay?
Yeah, I'm good. I got to see Blink-182.
Yeah.
Over the weekend, and that was fucking rad. It was kind of a last minute thing.
Are they back with Tom DeLonge now?
They are back with Tom DeLonge.
And I don't know if Mark's cancer affected his singing in any way. I'm not sure exactly what he had and what was going on. I know it was, I think, lymphoma. But it was like a lot of Tom-heavy singing songs, which wasn't bad. I mean, because it was really like every song you wanted to hear. The set list was fucking fantastic. So it was a blast. I would have gone back.
Yeah.
They had like fireworks on stage, and I was like, how the fuck did they just do that? And then like bunch of flames flying everywhere. Like it was a show. Did you go to the Gambino show? It was like that kind of a spectacle, just not as like elegant, like a punk rock version of that.
Yeah, I think you went to the one in Oakland. We went to the one in San Jose, and you were like literally directly below me. I was at like you were in the very far back of section.
You don't need to tell everybody what we were doing at the show.
You were in the back of section 1, and we were like at the very front of
was that coincidental?
Section 2.
Like, did we just happen to be
coincidental.
right next to each other?
We ended up getting, because he broke his leg, and then so he had to reschedule his entire tour. And then because of that, there were a bunch of people who backed out and returned their tickets. So there were a bunch of cheap tickets, like a couple months before the actual show dates. So I ended up getting tickets just by happenstance, and they were like really inexpensive for where they were at.
Nice.
Well,
show was great.
That sounds awesome. I'm jealous, but I know you said that it was last minute, so I'm not gonna do a cool invite. I get it.
Yeah, I hadn't seen them in like 20 years.
I've never seen them. I'd like to see them before they, for sure,
break up again.
Yeah, or Tom finally gets abducted by aliens.
He talked about it. He's like, I was right, and then they played that song.
That's pretty awesome. So news. I didn't want to overwhelm everybody. I know we skipped a week, and thanks everybody for your patience, and also thanks for the people who reached out and wanted to make sure we were okay. I just posted a little video message on Sunday saying that we were skipping a week for health-related reasons, everybody's good, as you can see. We're all alive. We're all healthy. So thank you for your worrying, but still gives me a little shiver, like we're in the pandemic. But I didn't want to overwhelm everybody, but there were a few things that I did want to bring up. First, John, I wanted to give you a chance to talk about Metalocalypse, because that's the big news for you.
I'm so excited about this. So, as I've mentioned probably multiple times on the show before, I'm a huge fan of Metalocalypse. I watched it since the very first season came out.
What's the band called? Death Clock?
Death Clock, yes. I think they came out in like the mid 2000s, and they released 4 seasons, and then they had a bunch of turmoil with Adult Swim. Brendan Small has been a creator for Adult Swim for a very long time. He was also the show that he had before that was called Home Movies, and that was
shit.
Yeah,
he did Home Movies.
He did Home Movies.
Dude,
Yeah,
I fucking love Home Movies
because that was a spinoff of some other show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then so
that's when I first
like the courtroom show or some shit.
That's when I first heard H. John Benjamin.
Yep,
as the gym teacher. Yeah,
but so
come on, Brandon.
yeah, and that means it's Brendan Small. He's the creator of that and of Metalocalypse, and he's also the majority of all of the instrumentation of Death Clock and the vocals for Death Clock. Wow. So, which
talented fucking guy, man.
Yeah, 100%. He's a fantastic guitar player. He's also had some solo music he's done in between, which is really cool. But they had a lot of turmoil with Adult Swim, and then they got to release a rock opera that was like all done. It was like, I think it's a little over an hour long, and it basically was like in place of a season 5. They did this rock opera that kind of like went through a lot of things really quickly. And then from there, they wanted to do an actual proper season 5 to close out the show. And then Adult Swim told them to fuck off. So from the period of like 2012, 2013 up until currently, there had been no news or no progress really made towards any of that. And then last week, they dropped a single for the new album, Death Album 4, which... The prior album is I believe the current highest charting metal album, or specifically death metal album of all time.
Wow.
Because it actually made it to the Billboard charts.
Yeah, I remember that shit. Like they were going on tour, and it was super fucking popular.
So is that like a Gorillaz type situation where the whole thing reminds me of Gorillaz, but when you go see them live, is it like a screen that shows the characters and then they're performing behind it or in front of it or whatever?
So the screens are above them from what I've seen in like videos and stuff, and they perform on stage and they do like all of the normal trappings of a performance, but they also will have like, because he doesn't do all of the character voices, there are some people who are voiced by other people, so other people will come in and like they'll have like little skits in between where the characters are talking to each other, which is really fun. But yeah, so they released a single. They announced that they're releasing a movie to help to start either to start wrapping up the story or to put a bow on the end of the story. The album is coming out, I believe, in August, along with that movie. And
I think
then
it's done. Like the movie's done.
Yeah, it's all done. It's like it's releasing soon. It's releasing this year. And then from there, I think they're either going on tour or they're just like performing at a bunch of festival locations, which is really cool. It's cool to see that he gets to finally finish his vision, because it's been so long in the making, and like he had been very public, similar to like Flanagan's situation with Netflix and not getting to continue Midnight Club, was like very like vocal on the internet and talking about how awful like his experience was with the studio.
Go on his Tumblr and read what he has to say about Netflix now. The dude has no filter about how much he is just like, fuck Netflix.
Yeah.
Not in those words, but like he pretty much all of his posts have some sort of backhanded thing about how Netflix is fucking idiots. So but that's super exciting. I've never watched Metalocalypse, but it feels like a show that was like always a part of Adult Swim, like while I was growing up. And I think because I wasn't into death metal, I thought that I wouldn't like the show. I'm sure now if I watched it, I would think it was great, but and also I would enjoy the music. But
it's just brutal.
Yeah, I think that's super cool that he gets to come back and do that, and also just so frustrating, for a creative person, I'm sure, to have to wait that long, because Adult Swim was being stupid about it? Was viewership just really low, or
I don't think that.
so.
I mean, the album that coincided with that season in season 4, when they stopped allowing him to make episodes, was, like I said, it sold gangbusters, and I'm sure they had a part of it. Unless in his contract when starting the process of creating it that he had the rights to the music. I don't know what else was going on, but I know that there were like a bunch of weird things about the music too. Like some of it was on streaming services and some of it wasn't. And there's still a little bit of that. Like all of the, like on Apple Music specifically, all of the Doomstar Requiem, the rock opera that they did in between, that entire soundtrack isn't available on some of the streaming services, and then the other 3 albums are, which is weird.
well,
All that right shit is confusing. But yeah, cool. Glad that creator's getting a win on that one.
yeah, definitely. So you brought this information to my attention, and then I had a little spin-off theory about it. But Linda Hamilton.
Oh, yeah.
It's been announced that she is going to be joining the cast for the 5th and final season of Stranger Things.
And Anthony's got an early prediction of how the season's going to go, and honestly, I think it's plausible. I hope it's not the direction, but I think it could happen.
So, what I will say is, if you have not seen Stranger Things season 4, you might want to skip like a couple minutes ahead in this, because they're going to be,
Some spoilers.
some mild spoilers for that season. And then also, if you just don't want to hear what I think might happen because you feel like it might ruin it for you, I have no fucking clue. I'm not a Duffer brother, illegitimately. But last season,
Internet Duffer.
Internet Duffer Anthony. Yeah, last
More like
season
internet fluffer,
we
you know what I'm
had
saying?
Robert Englund make a brief appearance
Yeah.
in that season of Stranger Things, and the entire kind of styling and what was happening in last season was very Nightmare on Elm Street. And
Right.
so
that was like a way to...
So to me, it was like, okay, they're bringing this actor in because this whole season is an homage to that property that they're famous from. Well, in my mind, the only reason you bring in Linda Hamilton to this season is because time travel is probably going to be a big part of it. In season 4, they introduced the idea that in the Upside Down is frozen in the first season when Will disappeared. So, because when they go into the Upside Down and they go to Nancy's room, she realizes that like her diary is sitting out from the night that Will disappeared, and they realize that some sort of time travel thing is happening inside of the Upside Down.
Yeah.
So I have a very strong feeling that the wrap up for this entire show is going to be them traveling through time using the Upside Down to try to either prevent the experiments that created Eleven and the other kids, so that helps prevent the Upside Down, or whatever the original origin point of the Upside Down breaking into our world. They're going to go back and try to change that or fix that by defeating Vecna as a bait, like, killing Hitler as a baby sort of thing. The reason I don't want that to happen is because time travel is so... like, we had Avengers Endgame do that.
Yeah.
So
you think
The
it's
Flash
gonna,
is all time
they're going to
travel,
fix it
like-
and everyone's just going to grow up regular?
Yeah, and it's going to be like... And then at the end, 11, who will be Jane, will be happily living with a mother, and it'll all tie up with that, and there'll be the bittersweet thing of, like, she never met Mike and the gang, but a lot of people are back to life. We'll have Billy come back at the end, and all these people... Sean Astin will probably show up and be like, look at all the people we saved. Barb will show up. She'll be the last one to walk out of the shadows, and everybody will cheer. But
Stranger Things Avengers Assemble.
Yeah.
pretty much. So that's my... That is my prediction. See, I just time traveled to being 14 years old.
You do that a lot.
Yeah. My manly man voice is yet to come in. But yeah, I think that's what's going to happen. And it makes me a little bit nervous because I just wish that...
Very nice.
I mean, it fits. It's not like completely out of left field.
Well, especially since, like I said, they've set up some sort of time travel element in the last season. And so I kind of already had a sneaking suspicion. We may have even talked about it in our Break the Binge coverage of last season. I thought time travel was going to be a big element coming up. I just think that so many movies have done it all in such a short period of time now as a way of saying, hey, we did something crazy last movie or last season. Now how do we fix it all? Or, hey, we fucked up the DC universe. How do we... And I don't know if you guys have seen The Flash, so I won't spoil if that movie does anything to fix anything. But there's obviously time travel is the main... that and multiverses. Like, I'm sick of it.
Yeah.
Let's put it... Let's take it out back and shoot it.
Say,
we don't need it anymore.
the Burbank brothers have a a video out now about multiverse fatigue.
Yeah, I've been meaning to watch it.
Yeah,
Already?
yeah.
Wow.
I mean, that's how you get clicks on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But yeah, that's my prediction. If I'm wrong, I don't owe y'all anything. If I'm right, you all owe me $50 a piece. For
Could
every
also
person
be
listening to
somebody
this
who
episode.
enters the Upside Down from way in the future and then comes through the Upside Down
She's
to
L?
current time.
She's Future L?
Like
That's-
Trunks style.
Yeah.
Future L? Who style?
Trunks from Dragon Ball
Dragon
Z.
Ball Z.
Oh, I thought you said Trump. I was like, I don't... what did he do?
When
I'm
Trump
really-
came back from the future to become president.
I'm really tired of these Demogorgons. I don't like Vecna. Vecna's a real baby.
Upside down, right side up. There's good people on both sides.
I hate it so much.
Oh, fuck. That's too good. Yeah, but maybe that's it. That's another prediction. You heard it here maybe first.
Donald Trump is a time traveler.
Can we play trivia already?
I got two more bits of news. So real quick, I haven't watched the trailer, so I don't have a lot to say about this, but Kraven the Hunter with Aaron Taylor Johnson now has a trailer. This movie is actually happening. Who wanted it? Nobody.
Also, they've shown that these universes are all connected.
Who has?
The studios from Marvel.
What part? Oh, this is a Marvel?
This is a
Spider-Man villain.
Spider-Man Rogues Gallery
this is
character.
Sony.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's part of
they so- yeah.
Sony's Venom,
Morbius.
Spider-Verse, Morbius, basically all of the characters that should have Spider-Man involved.
What happens in Venom that connects it?
Venom. Oh, so
Spoilers?
So he is like in some of the scenes from No Way Home, right? Or
Yeah, at the end isn't
Isn't he like having a drink in like the Bahamas or something?
Yeah, and then he like flashes to Tom Holland's universe, sees Tom Holland on the TV, goes, I'm going to go find that guy. But then at the end of No Way Home, in the post-credits, he just flashes back to his regular Venom universe, but he leaves a little bit of the symbiote behind in the MCU. So that's how that works out. Then
so Holland's not necessarily, or Hardy's not necessarily in it.
No.
But now we have Venom in it.
Yeah, and then also
Okay.
the Spot in Across
goes
the Spider-Verse
into Venom's world.
in the convenience store with the
Does he?
the Asian convenience store lady. Yeah, he like pops up in his live action and she's like, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. But yeah. So he's already been a character.
Kick-Ass.
Yeah.
Oh no, Quicksilver.
Yeah.
He has been kick-ass.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was Kick-Ass.
But that's part of Marv, not Marvel.
Also, I mean, it's not like any of these studios have any bones about just recasting people as different characters. It's classic now. But speaking of Across the Spider-Verse and time travel and The Flash, no, I don't want to make a sticker of Linda Hamilton.
Why not?
So speaking of that, you guys said that you hadn't seen The Flash, right? Or you have seen it?
Sure haven't.
Well, neither has anybody else except for me.
Oh, really?
The movie has
bombing.
tanked so fucking hard.
Why? Isn't it supposed to be pretty good?
That's
Like,
a big
isn't it getting
question
good
of the day.
reviews?
I enjoy.
But people hate Ezra?
So it could be because of all the drama around Ezra and their whole thing. It could be that people know that this is going to mean nothing because they're rebooting the DC universe,
Or
it
people
could
are
be
still
because people
upset
don't
about
care
Zack
the
Snyder.
Flash, or there's a million reasons, and also the superhero fatigue in general.
Wow.
But it had a 75% drop in its second weekend, so it did decently in its first weekend, and then just completely shit the bed in the second weekend, which brought Across the Spider-Verse back up to number one at the box office.
Yeah, that movie's hella good, though.
Yeah, the movie's great. The Flash, I had a lot of fun with, but it's got holes the size of Jupiter in terms of it being a decently it's pretty much a train wreck of a movie, but it's fun to watch. There's some good moments, and I liked Ezra in the movie. Even though I don't condone anything that they've done in their life. I think they're a horrible human being. I thought that they did pretty decently in the role.
I've heard I've heard some cameo spoilers, and some of them are a bit cringe from what I've heard.
All of them are a lot cringe, but
some of them are people who no longer are of this earth, and that kind of makes it a little.
have shuffled
don't
off
tell
this
me, don't
mortal
tell
coil.
me.
Yeah,
I want to be so surprised.
it's Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln shows up.
What? The vampire hunter?
Yeah, and the Flash just shoots him in the head. I've got to put history right.
Was that a fatal injury?
But bigger, more interesting news about the future of the DC universe is we have officially found out who is playing
We got a
Superman and Lois Lane in
Oh,
James
shit.
Gunn's Superman Legacy. So for Superman, we have an actor who I don't know from anything. I looked up his filmography, and I don't know who he is. His name is David Corenswet. Corenswet?
Cornsweet.
Cornsweet. I will look up a picture of him real quick so you can see that he looks like
Henry Cavill.
Henry Cavill. He literally just looks like Henry Cavill, but a few years younger.
Well, he like does. That's weird, dude.
Yeah, if you just scroll through his picture, he just looks like Superman.
I've seen him.
Oh,
Um,
John, put a picture on the screen, will you?
But I mean, I think he's got the look. He's young. That's cool. Apparently, he's a really great actor. So I'll have to check out some of the other stuff that he's been in. What I'm more excited about, though, is that Lois Lane casting.
Who is it?
Rachel Brosnahan from The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Oh, she plays Maisel.
She plays Maisel, yeah, and she is fantastic. And
This guy was in Pearl.
Oh yeah, he was like the projectionist or something, which I'd have to rewatch that movie to even know like what that was all about.
Yeah.
But Rachel Brosnahan, my sister's been watching Maisel. One of my coworkers has been watching Maisel. I've seen like 3 seasons of it.
Ashley the intern's been also watching Maisel.
Yeah, it's a fantastic show. She is a fantastic actor, and I think she is just like the perfect casting for Lois Lane. So I'm very excited about that. And
I have some information about this because
Really?
originally it was like a rumor that was going around, and then James Gunn was like, "No, that's true, that's accurate." But then also went on record as saying that they are light years away from finding Batman. At this point, they're not even considering looking for Batman.
Jensen Ackles.
Could be.
He actually joked in an interview recently that he's afraid that he wouldn't get it because Pedro Pascal would get it. Just because Pedro Pascal's being cast and everything. But
Dude, I would love to see Jensen.
Here's the deal, though.
he's voiced Batman in the animated stuff, and he's got the perfect voice.
He does have the perfect voice for it, but they've got the right casting. It's right there. If they just
Christian Bale.
no, if they just fold in the Robert Pattinson
Linda
the
Hamilton?
Batman film,
Oh,
they just fold it in. It'd work perfect.
Yeah, I kind of
I don't think he's gonna go that dark though.
no, and I do prefer them sticking with this Elseworlds idea of letting directors like
Do their own thing.
Todd Phillips or like Matt Reeves come in and do their take on the Joker, their take on Batman, and not be forced to tie it into everything else.
and especially if
So-
they're still going to use those characters to build that story. Like, you want to have your story thing go on this adventure. Cool. What if we did something else? You know what I mean? So then we don't have to wait for another iteration. I think
Yeah.
that's a cool idea.
Yeah, because I think a ton of these movies, especially in the DC universe, have been completely hobbled by the fact that they're forced to tie in some way to this larger universe, and the same with a lot of Marvel stuff. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I've been looking forward to the Superman movie. I love Superman, but I was just like, I wasn't looking forward to it until I heard James Gunn was doing it, and then I started hearing him talking about what he wanted to do with it and the comics that inspired him, like All-Star Superman, and I think the dude obviously is going to try to go for Superman as opposed to, everybody loves Henry Cavill. I think Henry Cavill's a great actor too, but he never got a chance to really play Superman, and so I can't really comment on whether he was a good Superman because he didn't really ever play Superman. So I'm interested to see where this goes, but I want to end with a little in memoriam.
Let me do one more, and then we can do that.
Oh, okay.
Netflix released a trailer for it, long awaited if you're a big science fiction fan, The Three Body Problem,
Oh, shit.
which is a Chinese novel, and it's supposed to be one of the greatest science fiction novels ever written, and Netflix is doing a show. There's a show that China made. It's also supposed to be really good. I'm not sure where you can find it, but that's already out. But yeah, the Netflix one, I believe,
Streaming live on Bilibili.
I believe it's coming out next year. So if you want to check that out, the trailer looks pretty cool. I have the books. I think they're directly behind me. I've never read any of them, but there's 3 of them, and they're supposed to be really good. So if you're a big science fiction fan, a little science fiction news for you.
I'll have to add that to my reading list now that I'm trying to read again. Let's move over to the in memoriam.
Okay.
Julian Sands So Julian Sands is an actor who you might recognize if you're a schlock horror fan from the Warlock franchise. We would probably recognize him most as the scientist in the jungle at the beginning of Arachnophobia.
Okay.
Yeah. He's been in a shit ton of stuff. Great actor. This is what he looks like, in case you don't know who Julian Sands is.
Yeah.
But he went hiking in the mountains north of Los Angeles. He was an avid hiker a couple months ago and disappeared.
Oh, shit.
There was a huge search that's been going on that's been impacted by weather. Well, a couple days ago, some hikers found some remains that have been positively identified as Julian Sands. So he did, in fact, pass away at 65. So very sad news there. With these kind of situations, I'm like, well, if there's going to be any silver lining, at least it's that he was doing a thing that he enjoyed when it happened. He was out in nature. He was hiking. But yeah, still very sad. And it makes me want to go because I realized outside of those couple things I mentioned, I'm not super familiar with his filmography. So I definitely want to go check out some more of his films because a lot of people have been posting about how sad this news was for them. And so I'm like, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of big Julian Sands fans out there. But yeah, so be safe out there, guys. If you're hiking, don't go alone.
Yeah.
Definitely use the buddy system, but no shade on Julian Sands. He, accidents happen. I guess they were saying that there have been a lot of recorded landslides and things in the area where he was hiking, and he was also going up a pretty tall ridge with like a steep drop. So a lot of different stuff could have happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, so now that we've ended Chop Talk on a sour, depressing note, which really is the theme of this episode.
Pretty much,
Yeah.
Let's play some trivia.
Yeah, let's
Sounds
do
In
it
a little bit, we got to dust off the old brain.
The old
John
brain.
Crankin.
That Christmas house of wax, the fog, piranha. It's one of those, right? Right?
All right, we're going to get started with some movies. Trivia game consists of 4 categories. We'll read a category and then go around in a circle, reading to each other with me to John, John Anthony, Anthony back to me. Are you fellas ready?
I've been waiting forever.
Dude,
Oh.
I've ever since Chop Talk just had my teeth gritted. Just
It feels like it's been days. Huh? All right, first category is comedy animation. John, who is Sully's sidekick in Monsters, Inc.?
Sully?
Sully's sidekick.
Talking about Sullivan? We're talking about Mike Wazowski.
Yes, there are options, but there's no fucking way I was giving you options.
No,
to that.
absolutely not.
I'm watching you, Wazowski.
Yep.
Always watching.
Always tripped me out. So, like, because they have the Monsters, Inc. ride at California Adventure. And at the end, like, the animatronic of Roz is at the very end, and she'll, like, actually talk to you. Like, I think it was maybe when I was in, like, I had graduated from high school, but my sister was still going to do, like, the Magic Music Days. Because we used to perform at Disney, which was really cool.
Band nerds.
But we were riding that ride, and at the end, she, like, looked at me and was like, I really like your glasses.
Oh,
I was like, that's pretty cool. I'm sure it's probably somebody who's sitting there watching and then press button of canned thing. But
Yeah.
it's always those little things that, like, are like the magic
You're
of
sitting with
Disney.
like your parents in the like ride car with you, and she just goes, "I know you touch yourself at night." Just like,
you're talking me, her, or him?
who are you gonna believe, me or this chick?
Anthony, who played the 40-year-old Virgin?
That's gonna be Steve Carell.
Steve Carell is the correct answer.
Virgin.
Yeah.
I thought you said version. I thought, like, 40-year-old version of what?
Steve Carell. Tone. In a weird bit of typical podcast synergy, what is James P. Sullivan's nickname in Monsters, Incorporated? ?
Sully?
It is indeed Sully.
What's Mike Wazowski's nickname?
Mike.
It's Googly Bear. That's what.
Googly Bear.
Yeah.
Jennifer
Schmoopsy
Tilly?
poo.
Isn't that Jennifer
Yeah.
Tilly?
I was just about to say, is that Jennifer
I'm
Tilly?
pretty sure it is.
Oh, yeah, it's Jennifer Tilly.
Hey, all
one of
right,
them Jennifer
cool.
Tillys?
We're all on the board?
Yes, we are.
John, what movie in the action adventure category features the song "Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head"?
Can you repeat
There's definitely
the
more
question?
movies that do this, but I'm gonna say, oh God, why do I feel like it happens in one of the Spider-Man movies?
What was the question?
What movie features the song "Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head"?
Oh, it doesn't give you like a specific year or anything? Weird.
Or options?
Because I mean, I guess if you said one of the if you got the right Spider-Man movie, you would technically be correct, but not, I assume, for the answer to this question.
Yeah, I think that's kind of shitty.
But you gotta get it, bro.
Yeah, that seems strange, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Gotta be more specific.
Yeah, like what 19 or 2000 whatever movie
Yeah.
features the song?
Just like the guy whose feet are too big for his bed.
Is it
Nothing
Spider-Man 3
seems
though?
to fit.
That's not what's on here.
Okay. Well,
I don't know if that's what's.
I'm
Is it Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid?
Yeah, but does he sing it in Spider-Man 3?
yeah,
No.
it's
He
in
sings
Spider-Man
it,
3.
No, he sings it in Spider-Man 2 because it's after he
Oh,
loses
it's-
his
yeah,
powers.
very true.
So he still would have been wrong.
Yeah.
You gonna question him on Spider-Man?
True.
Thwip thwip. That's when Sam Raimi cameos hitting him in the head with the book bag.
Oh,
Toby was like, "Yeah, that dude just filled that bag up full of books," and you could tell he must have been had some pent up anger from that shoot.
Anthony, Mikey, Chunk, Mouth, and Data all go hunting for treasure in what 80s movie?
Hey, you guys! The Goonies.
It is indeed the Goonies.
I hate that line now.
Oh, because
Yeah.
of the Regal ad.
Yeah.
It's just what is this? This is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Yep.
Yeah.
Rather be the beginning of you getting kicked out of this room right now.
Comb your hair, you fool. Tone, what cock film features Cary Grant being chased by a crop duster?
Oh man.
Come on, baby.
Is it North by Northwest?
It is indeed North by Northwest.
It's actually South by Southwest.
Ooh.
It's North by Northwest. You got it right.
All right, Anthony and I are at 2 and John's at 1.
Mm-hmm.
And we're moving into drama musical. John, what character famously said, "Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn"?
Is that Rhett Butler?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Nice, dude.
Wow.
From Gone with the Wind.
I wouldn't have gotten that.
Adjusted for inflation, it's the highest grossing film of all time.
Crazy with
Yeah, but they also didn't have a lot of options.
Well, no, it was in theaters.
you want to go see
it
Gone
was,
with the Wind for the 20th time?
It was in theaters for I think like 4 or 5 years. It's a long ass time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah, it's because you could have to go see one part of it and then wait another 6 weeks before you watch the other part of it. Isn't that movie like 4 hours or something?
Yeah, with
It's
an intermission.
3. Yeah, it's 3 something. Yeah.
That's why I haven't watched it. That's why I haven't seen it yet.
I've read the
but
book.
I'd like to at some
It is a.
You read that book?
It is a long read. Read it in high school.
That's crazy, buddy.
It was my mom's favorite book and her favorite movie. Anthony, who played the hitman in Tarantino's Pulp Fiction?
Who played the Hitmen? Or
Hitman.
Hitman.
Hitmen.
Hitmen?
Yes, men's.
Pam? Pam?
Pan.
Is it Samuel L. Jackson and Jonathan Travolta?
Mm-hmm, it is. I'm Samuel Jackson. This is my beer. It's
Okay.
a Chappelle Show reference.
I heard it.
Yeah.
He's really impressive in Secret Invasion.
Who?
Sam Jackson.
Oh.
Like
Is the
it-
second episode out?
Yeah.
Oh.
Watched it last night. It's not blowing me away or anything, but I do think that it's really cool to see him actually acting. Like, I mean, not that he hasn't been acting in previous movies, and it still feels like it's Sam Jackson, but like he is, it's reminding me like, oh, Sam Jackson is actually like a really great actor. Like, yeah, we all just know him for his, motherfucker bits and all that,
Yeah.
but it's nice to be reminded that he's, especially standing next to somebody like Amelia Clark, Jesus. Tone, what daughter of Judy Garland earned an Oscar nomination
Liza
for the...
Minnelli.
Yep.
For what?
For The Sterile Cuckoo.
Oh, I thought one helped me out.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
Liza Minnelli.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's the Judy Garland's daughter part did. Oh, Lucille. Great. So we got 3, you got 2, and we're moving into horror and sci-fi. John, what Ethan Hawke movie depicts a futuristic society that practices eugenics and genetic discrimination?
Eugenics. What kind of math is that?
Is that how you pronounce it? Oh,
It is. You got it right. I was just making a...
Ethan Hawke, eugenics and eugenic-based discrimination.
Genetic discrimination.
Yeah.
Eugenetic. I-genetic.
We genetic. Oh.
Sound like the Dune soundtrack up in here, huh?
I'm a throat singer.
Oh shit. I honestly don't remember.
Silence fell
Yeah, I
across
don't
the
know.
land as John pondered.
You're not going to guess?
You got to say something. If you see something, say something.
WB, son. Warner Brother.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got nothing.
All right, that is Gattaca.
I've never seen it.
Dude, it's a fucking awesome movie.
Yeah.
Him and Jude Law. Highly recommend it.
I kept seeing Jude Law for some reason, but I also think I was thinking of Repo Men.
Yeah, which I haven't seen. So
Yeah.
I'll watch Repo Man, and you can watch Gattaca.
That's the movie we're trying to get their pianos back.
Anthony, true or false? The main character in Drag Me to Hell gets dragged to hell at the end of the movie.
Spoiler alert.
Spoilers!
That's so true.
It is indeed true.
Oh.
I got nervous for a second.
I was like, all right.
I also voiced Nausicaa in Nausicaa, Valley of the Wind.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, Alison Lohman.
Do you have wind?
No.
Passing through the valley of your ass crack. Tone, what is the last human city in the Matrix? There are options if you need them.
Zion.
It is indeed Zion.
Woo!
Killing it.
4, 2.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and we're going back to the beginning with comedy animation. John, what does NIM stand for in The Secret of NIM? I did not know that this was
An acronym?
an acronym. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Didn't either. It stands for...
Not in my house.
Isn't this about like mice?
Yeah. It's of mice and men. When I heard somebody say a joke the other day when they were like comparing some character to Lenny from A Mice and Men. They were like, "Oh, it's like Lenny, the rabbit's George." And the other guy started laughing and was like, "Oh, you're not gonna in the year 2023, you're not gonna try to do a Lenny impression?" And he was like, "Yeah, no, I'm just gonna the rabbit's George." He's like, I'm not gonna get in trouble for that.
No one is Mouse House.
National Institution of Mental Health. That does not seem right. What is that movie about?
I don't know.
It's about lab rats who escape the lab.
Oh.
Yeah, so they're stuck, I guess, in the National Institute of Mental
Oh.
Health. And they escape.
I thought that was the name of the mouse. I thought it was the little secret.
Everyone was sequel.
I like Not in My House better.
Yeah.
The secret of not in my house, baby.
Anthony, who is Simba's evil uncle in The Lion King?
You get this and he gets that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Hey, man, I came prepared. It's Scar.
It is indeed Scar.
That's my evil uncle. In a movie that I recently confused with a Jon Favreau movie, in Sideways, Paul Giamatti plays a struggling writer trying to get his book published. Does he ever get it published?
Ooh.
Yeah, see?
Got a 50-50.
Yes.
He does not.
Oh. Spoilers. Guess I'm never gonna watch
Spoilers.
Sideways.
This trivia just assumes you've
You
seen
weren't-
every movie.
You weren't gonna watch Sideways anyway.
You don't know.
It's a good movie. I feel like it would have had more of an impact on me if I was able to drink wine.
So you got 5, I got 4, and you got 2.
Yeah.
All right, and we got action adventure coming up. John Who rescues Bruce Willis from the citizens of Harlem in Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Is it asking for a character or an actor?
An actor.
Samuel L. Jackson.
That is correct.
Dude,
That motherfucker's popping up everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
it's all coming up Jackson.
Yep. Anthony, what was the second movie in the Fast and the Furious franchise?
Come on, baby. That's too fast, too furious.
Too fast for y'all. Yeah, that's correct.
Hooah.
Tone, for your action adventure question, featuring your favorite actor, who plays Schwarzenegger's wife in True Lies?
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Hell yeah, that iconic striptease scene.
That's so funny. I didn't realize it was like I've seen parts of it, but I've never watched the whole scene. And then just recently watching the whole scene, it's like she like stumbles and fumbles around. It's funny.
And knowing the actual context, because I had seen the scene quite a few times.
Yeah.
But in the context of the whole movie, it actually is a pretty funny scene.
Yeah.
Based on the conversation we had off mic, I know why you were looking for it.
Right on. So now I got. What am I at? 5?
Yes, and he's at 6, and I am at 3.
Okay. And it's musical drama. John, I want you, if you get this right, I want you to change the name just slightly, okay? Which more movie has the line, charging a man with murder in his place was handing out... Charging a man with murder in this place was like handing out speeding tickets at the Indy 500.
It's from a war movie, you said?
Yeah, which war movie has that line? Charging a man with murder in this place was like handing out speeding tickets at the Indy 500.
Shoot. Oh. Oh. Is this
Auto parts.
so is this the one that's like it's like a war movie, but it's also kind of like a courtroom drama?
I don't know. I don't think so.
No.
You don't get no clues. I'm not even sure if I know.
I don't know. I've never seen it. So
Because I'm thinking of the same movie you are, but
Yeah.
I have a suspicion it's not the right one.
I don't know.
Yeah, if you've never seen it, it's hard to say. Oh yeah, definitely not what I was thinking.
Okay.
Then I will say Platoon.
So
It
fucking
is
close, dude.
Apocalypse Now.
I almost guessed
Different
Apocalypse
Sheen.
Now. Yeah. But what's the movie that we
Few
were?
Good Men.
A Few Good Men is the other movie I was thinking of.
You can't handle the
Yeah,
truth.
that's all I could remember. I want the truth. Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that movie until like a couple months ago.
Which?
Few Good Men.
Oh.
And Apocalypse Now.
Apocalypse Now is a hard
And
watch.
Platoon. Yeah, Apocalypse Now. But I mean, that's a movie where it's like if you really, really want to feel what it was like to be in the Vietnam War as close as you can get.
Yeah.
I read the book or story that it's based off, but it's a different war. Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad.
Yeah, I read it in high school.
The horror.
The horror.
Anthony, who won an Oscar for her role as Lisa Rowe in Girl Interrupted?
Ooh.
He's thinking. He's doing a think drinking.
He's thinking. Smart water. He is drinking.
When he's out here breaking, when his ass it do be stinking.
Who won an Oscar for the role of Lisa Rowe, you said?
Yeah, Lisa Rowe in Girl Interrupted.
Well, I have a 50-50 chance here because it's either Winona or it's Angie. And I don't remember what the characters' names are. So I'm going to take a wild guess and say it was Angelina Jolie.
It is indeed Angelina Jolie. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I don't think Winona's ever won an Oscar.
I don't think so either. That's why I was having a hard time with that. But that's James Mangold. Crazy to think about that.
Yeah.
Now he's on that dial of destiny.
Fucking weird.
He's got a very strange, which I love, that he's just like not made the same kind of movie twice. He did fucking Identity, which is like a really awesome twisty mind game movie with Cusack and Leota.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Busey.
Tone. that Gary Busey do. Tone. For your musical question, what musical starring Julie Andrews won an Oscar for Best Picture in 1966?
Pick up 6.
Come on, baby.
Julie Andrews, Oscar.
Is it The Sound of Music?
Those Hills Are Alive
With the Sound of Music, yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Woo! All right. Anthony's winning. I'm one behind. And John...
I'm still here.
Present.
Here is your horror sci-fi question, and probably the easiest question ever written. What horror franchise features a serial killer called Jigsaw?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say The Fast and the Furious. No, Saw.
Drop the jig. Just Saw.
Cleaner. Or dirtier, potentially.
That is correct.
I like it.
Anthony, in Nightmare on Elm Street, which I think I was correct.
In A Nightmare on
Yeah,
Elm Street,
it doesn't have the It just went drop the
Well, completely disregard the question then.
In A Nightmare on Elm Street, where does Freddy Krueger kill his victims?
In their dreams, in a boiler room, typically.
Yeah, in their dreams is the correct answer.
For a sweep, son.
Yep, sweep it.
Cleaning lady.
She
Dusts.
Schweppes.
Schweppes. Tone, for your easiest fuck question, to round things out. For the xenomorphs in the Alien franchise, what life stage comes between the egg and the chest burster?
Come on, baby.
The face hugger?
It is the face hugger. Yeah.
That's a weird question.
So 8, 7, and
8,
I'm
6,
over
7,
here.
5, 3, 0, 9.
And a respectable some number that...
And a gentleman's 3.
there's more than 3.
Okay.
It's less than 5, though, I think.
Bug. All right, well, that's going to wrap for trivia. Congratulations, sir, on your big win. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to dive into Children of Men and The Road.
Join the Creep Cult. $5 a month at patreon.com/Porcelain Peak for exclusive content, merch discounts, and more. Join the Creep Cult. $5 a month at patreon.com/Porcelain Peak for exclusive content, merch discounts, and more.
Hey, you want to see something really scary?
Welcome back. We're going to continue with CAMPOCALYPSE, and we're talking about The Road and Children of Men this week. We're going to kick it off with The Road.
Or as I like to call it, Sad Max, the Road Warrior. You guys like that?
Some background on it. Directed by John Hillcoat and screenplay by Joe Penhall. Stars Viggo Mortensen, Cody Smith-McPhee, Robert Duvall, Guy Pearce, Charlize Theron. Those are kind of the biggest players. And based on the book by Cormac McCarthy. And I think we mentioned it before, but music by Nick Cave.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the logistics background. You want to tell us about kind of what this movie basic plot is?
Yeah, I will give a basic plot. We can give kind of
Basic
like our
plot.
Our spoiler warning?
Yeah, our thoughts, and then jump into spoilers. So basically it's about an apocalyptic event happens. We're not told what that apocalyptic event is. And then from there, we follow a man and his boy, his son, Kratos style. Mm-hmm. And he is just trying to not ruin this kid's life, going through an apocalypse, and dealing with all of the terrible things that happen when the remainder of humanity goes insane. It's a harrowing story. Like I said, there's a lot of like little nuanced things, and it doesn't really hold your hand through the process, and it just kind of lets you live in the suck that is this.
Yeah, both of these movies
universe.
are the kind of movies that you just like you feel them in your balls.
Yeah,
like just like the tragedy and the like just the harrowing nature of both of these movies. You just you just feel it in your balls. Is all I can say.
Yeah, and the story that we're following with the man and the boy is like 10 or 11 years into the apocalypse.
Yeah,
So I think that's something to note too, because a lot of times we see the beginning or we see like the fall and kind of the aftermath, but this is like deep in.
And then I'll say that in terms of my recommendation, for me, The Road is one of my all-time favorite books. I love Cormac McCarthy's writing. I was just talking with these guys off mic. I think that he was just an insanely intelligent human being who was like insanely multi-talented beyond writing. But I remember reading The Road and just being absolutely destroyed by it. And but also just thinking how amazing that reading experience was, because up until reading that, I had never really read something written in that kind of style where it's, because McCarthy is very, he's known in his writing for, lack of proper punctuation and kind of a stream of consciousness, or, the way he calls the characters in this, like instead of giving them names, it's, man and boy. And, and then, so in terms of recommending the movie, I would say I would highly recommend reading the book if you have the opportunity. It's short. I think it took me like a day to read it the first time that I read it. So if you haven't experienced either of these, definitely check out the book first if you can. But
there's also versions of the audiobook available on YouTube as well.
Yeah, and I think it's like an 8-hour audiobook or something, if not shorter. But if you can't do that and you just want to check out the movie, I think the movie gets as close as you possibly could with this material. Because I think the only thing that the movie is lacking is just the experience of McCarthy's writing. Like you can't really adapt the experience of reading his writing in outside of maybe No Country for Old Men. I'd have to actually read the book to know how that compares, even though I think that movie is a masterpiece. I think this gets close, but it just doesn't quite have the impact and doesn't quite grab you with the characters in the way that following their journey in the first person in that book does.
Yeah, I agree. It's basically everything.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite books too.
I've
5 for sure.
I've read about 20 pages of this book.
Recently?
Recently, as in like yesterday.
Oh, nice.
It's hard to grasp the style just because as you're going through, like I said, it's very stream of consciousness. There's no punctuation whatsoever.
And there's no like chapter breaks.
Yeah, and it's just like there's barely paragraph breaks. It's just a wall of text, and then you occasionally see a line of space. And I'm like, where did this come from? And so like I'll definitely sit down and try to read as much of it as I can, if not read the whole thing. The way that he describes things is like I would never think to describe these things that he's describing in the way that he does.
Even just in his interviews, it was blowing me away because like any brilliant writer, he always has some analogy or metaphor for whatever he's trying to explain. And he was talking about the feeling you get when you solve a really difficult math problem. And he was like, I was telling a friend the other day, it's like, when a sad, wet puppy that you lost, like comes in out of the rain and you go, oh my, and you see that the answer to the math problem. And it's like that puppy and you going, oh my gosh, I missed you. Where were you? Like, I was wondering where you were. I was so worried. Like, instead of going like, oh, I fucking figured it out. It's more like, I knew you were there. I just needed to find you.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's such an interesting, like, cool way of describing that. But yeah, it's just this descriptive language in all of his writing is amazing, and also makes the brutal stuff even more brutal because he doesn't shy away from that in really any of his books when it comes to things like cannibalism, especially in this book.
Yeah.
Sexual assault.
Yeah, Child of God is something else.
Yeah. Back on topic, I've read some of it just because I really wanted to kind of get an eye for what his descriptive writing and like this whole stream of consciousness thing was like. And it's pretty crazy. I said I'm going to continue reading it because, like I said, it's unlike anything I've ever seen in my entire life. But having not read the entirety of the book, I found the movie very enjoyable. I definitely recommend
enjoyable
it.
In quotes.
Yeah, I mean,
enjoyable in a sad boy way. Yeah,
exactly. I think the performances are great.
Yeah.
Obviously, the bones that it's being given by Cormac's story, I think, really lend itself well to the story that's being told, and they they cast some really great people to be these characters, which I think is also, like I said, a testament to the team that put this film together. So I do recommend it. But like I said, who's to say if I would be singing a similar tune if I were in the space where I'd read the book.
I like the movie. I just love the book.
Yeah, and that's always going to be the challenge
snobby,
when you're so emotionally connected to a book. There's
Yeah.
always going to be that challenge of I just don't, unless the movie goes in a completely separate adaptation type direction, which like the movie we're going to be talking about after this, where in my opinion it improves on the source material from what I've seen from the source material. This is a case where they tried to adapt it as faithfully as possible, and so you're just going to get that immediate side-by-side comparison. But it sounds like we all recommend checking it out, and of course recommend checking out the book in whatever format, but I would highly recommend paying for it, picking it up at a bookstore, maybe picking up some other Cormac novels, because they're definitely worth checking out. But going forward, spoilers. We're just going to talk about the movie openly and what we liked and what we maybe didn't like as much.
Yeah.
I like that we're just kind of thrown in, like John mentioned. There's no hand-holding. We never find out what happens. We don't really understand any of it. And it's just, here's this journey, and it's not really about the apocalypse, which is what typically we see with other movies of this genre. It's more about the relationship between the man and his son, and just trying to keep their hope or fire alive. And so that to me, this movie came out at a time when the post-apocalyptic movies were like the big boom with stuff like Hunger Games and that shit. And so I think it fell into that, but it's not one of those, like, this is a movie for adults. It's not
unlike,
a YA thing.
Yeah, it's unlike all of those other
If this had been made closer to when the book came out, I think it probably would have had a much brighter spotlight shown on it. But yeah, I think because of when it came out, a lot of people just saw, especially with a title like The Road, a lot of people are going to see that and go that, like this poster here looks like, any still from The Walking Dead or a million other post-apocalyptic things you'd see. Like, there's nothing about that makes you go, oh, I need to check out this riveting emotional story, but except that it says it's a triumph here on the cover. But I do think that despite it having the style that I've kind of made fun of going forward, saying like the road style that things like Terminator Salvation and stuff have kind of copied, or basically, or the Call of Duty aesthetic, which is just everything looks like
everything's
gray or brown, mud. In this, the cinematography is really, really good, so they're still able to make the movie beautiful, even though everything is so ugly. But it's ugly in a almost like a black and white, like monochromatic way, where the even just a bare tree standing out against the smoky, cloudy sky is gorgeous. Or like there's that one shot that it cuts to with the two like overpass bridges going. Whoa, got some bug. It's attacking me.
Get attacked by bugs.
Like there's a shot of like two bridges going away above them to show, I guess, that him and his wife went on separate paths, like chose separate paths. I think all of that stuff is really gorgeous, and then the way that they make it so that the flashback scenes are in stark contrast to what we're seeing throughout the rest of the movie.
So bright and vibrant.
Yeah, we get the flashbacks that take place after the apocalypse has already happened, with Charlize and Vigo and Cody in the house together, and this really, really emotional backstory. I like that they don't load that all into the beginning of the movie and have that be like the first act, and then have the kids going, and then do a time jump or something. It's cutting back pretty much whenever the man is sleeping, because he's always waking up from a nightmare,
which is a fantastic plot device.
Yeah, and it works really well, where he keeps being jolted back into reality and being reminded of how awful everything is. But you have this kind of like golden glow over all of the scenes that he's remembering with his wife, as she is descending further into postpartum depression, on top of dealing with the fact that
post-apocalypse depression.
Yeah, post-apocalypse depression, exactly. And she eventually ends up kind of just wandering off to die and leaving him with the son, and he has to...
So we're led to believe, though, this movie has a lot of ambiguity.
Yeah, because we just see her wander off into the dark, and we don't really know.
Yeah. I wanted to mention, because you talk about like the style and the cinematography in this, and I think that a lot of times films that go a similar route, like your Terminator Salvations and things like that, because they go with this type of a color palette, they really lose a lot of depth to the shots. And I think that this is where this shines in comparison, because the cinematography is done so well, and whatever edit they throw on everything, whatever filter they put over all of these shots to make everything look so dingy and like, you know, everything's all gray and monochromatic, like you said, it still has all of these, like, you know, these great like shadows and light points, and you can really see into the image rather than it being just flat. And I think that, like I said, something like a Terminator Salvation falls flat in that type of an arena.
Yeah, and a lot of that, I think you're right, it probably comes from the way that they're processing it for color grading, where it's probably just like a filter, almost like a filter that's just being put on top of it that is flattening out the whole image, as opposed to going in and meticulously trying to color grade specific elements. And in this, from what I read about the behind the scenes, most of it is shot on real locations, like in Pittsburgh, in areas where there are actual, you know, entire neighborhoods and stuff that are completely run down and abandoned. So they would film in actual neighborhoods, on actual old roads, and
actual freezing fucking waters.
Yeah, freezing waters to the point that it was making Cody Smith McPhee break out into tears that they caught on camera of him crying after he's watching the stream. But yeah, real harsh conditions that obviously you can see reflected in the experience and the performance of the actors. But because they shoot it all in real locations, and really the most digital work they're doing is just removing little bits of greenery from the frame, and then like the sky replacements to make sure you get that gray smoky sky, and then obviously the color correction. But it's very little CG, which is something that we'll also come back to in the next movie we talk about, is how do you do a really convincing post-apocalyptic movie without making it just a big green screen CG fest. Totally possible. They're just desolate places of the world.
Yeah.
But then it's also reflected in the way the characters look. I mean, Vigo's like 30 pounds lighter than he's supposed to be, than he normally is, because he's starving himself during the filming of the movie and before the filming of the movie.
Going real method with it.
Which he's known for in most of his
not, like,
movies.
showering or changing his clothes.
To the point that he's getting kicked out of stores for potentially being homeless. And then, you know, I think that it blows me away how amazing Cody Smith McPhee is in this. And I knew when I saw this that he was going to go on to be a really great
Wasn't he just in something
actor.
we watched recently?
Last thing I saw him in was Power of the Dog with Benedict Cumberbatch. He was also in...
maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
He was in...
I still think he was in some other
He was
things
in Let Me In.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Knew about that.
With Chloe Grace Moretz.
I was thinking of something him older, but it might have been Power of the Dog.
He's also been in the X-Men movies.
Was he?
Like the younger Nightcrawler.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, so he's been in a lot of stuff, but the fact that he auditioned for this by doing a scene where the man is teaching the boy how to shoot himself if he needs to, like putting the gun in his mouth and showing him how to shoot himself, to have that be your audition when you're this young, and then his dad read him the entire book before even doing that audition tape. I mean, I don't know how this kid didn't grow up to be fucked up. I don't know too much about him, but
it might be. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's just straight up professionalism. It reminds me of Flanagan talking about Jacob Tremblay on the set of Dr. Sleep, where everybody on the set during the scene when
I sucked the life out of him.
when they're stabbing the shit out of him and sucking the life out of him, everybody on the set, all the adults, were like either in tears or like feeling like they were going to throw up because of how harrowing it was. And as soon as the scene was over, he just got up, high-fived his dad, and was like, "Let's get pizza." And and I guess Rebecca Ferguson like came up to Flanagan after that and said, "We need to reshoot my coverage because I'm not letting that little fucker win the scene. Like, he's not stealing the scene like that." So they refilmed her part so that she could really like lean into the But I think having an actor like that, I'm sure made Vigo feel like he really needed to step up his game, which how much does Viggo Mortensen have to step up his game? The guy's an incredible actor.
I feel like he's underrated. I mean, I think that both of the main actors of the movies that we're talking about today are ones that get kind of pushed off to the side when you talk about like really great actors. And I think of our generation, I think that Viggo and Clive Owen are both up in that territory, and they're the kind of guys who get pushed off to the side because they don't take a lot of roles. Because they only take the things that they're like really confident in, and they see and they're like, "Oh, I could really do something with this." I mean, I think of Viggo's entire run with with
Cronenberg.
Cronenberg. You know, think about Eastern Promises, History of Violence.
yeah.
A little less so with Crimes of the Future, but it's also not really his fault. He's pretty good in the movie, but the movie itself just kind of has some problems.
Yeah, but I think that most people probably just think, oh, he's the dude. He's Aragorn from Lord of the Rings, and they don't really look at any of his other stuff.
He's
But
done
yeah,
some crazy shit.
He's very talented, and so yeah, he gives a great performance. I guess they bonded on set, him and Cody, by eating crickets together, and
Fun.
I mean, it's a great source of nutrition if you're in the apocalypse. But yeah, and then we get to see some of the most fucked up shit that really makes this, to me, just a straight up horror novel, or especially the novel, but the movie too. There's only one really fucked up element of the book that isn't included in the movie, which is this idea that they at one point run into a group of survivors who has a bunch of pregnant women with them, and then shortly after they find a baby on a spit that's been cooked, and they realize that they're just churning out these babies so they can eat them. Pretty smart, honestly, but
fucked up.
Yeah, but fucked up. So, but in the movie, what we do get is the basically the plot of Barbarian in that scene where they go down into the bunker under the house and they find all these emaciated people who are being basically kept alive so they can be eaten limb by limb. That's horrifying.
I think there's in one of the Walking Dead Telltale games, I think there's a similar scene where there's like somebody who's being like chopped into like taken in small pieces and being eaten by a family on a farm.
It's a really fucked up idea, but I mean, The Walking Dead definitely, if not from the movie, from the book for sure, took a lot of inspiration with the idea of we're not really going to explain how the world ended. We're just going to be focusing on how people are getting by after. We'll show that, of course, humans are the real monsters, so the whole thing is like, I'm not afraid of the elements. I'm afraid of running into people, like, and that's the paranoia that Mortensen's character has throughout the entire movie, and that distrust. He's like, we can't trust anyone, and the boy is the whole time because he doesn't know anything about.
So curious too. I love seeing his curiosity.
Yeah, and he not only has that fire and that will to survive, but he also he has that curiosity and that humanity that hasn't been stolen from him. And really, I feel like
because to him, there's no other world. He didn't have it better than this, and then it got ripped away like everybody else. Like, to him, this is just what life is.
Yeah, and he doesn't quite understand what things like death really mean to him. Like, he asks Mortensen at one point, or he says, I want to be with my mom, and the man says, do you mean you want to die? And he says, yeah, because to him, like, that would make sense, because that would be nicer than the situation that they're in currently.
Yeah.
And I love that scene where the man is saying, like, you don't need to worry, like, I'm the one who has to worry about everything, blah blah blah. And McPhee just breaks down. He's like, no, I'm the one that I do. I'm constantly worried about us and what's going to happen to us and what's going on. And just gives such a powerful performance there, and it's heartbreaking. There were several parts of this movie where I was just breaking down in tears, where I didn't remember or expect, like when they're in the bathroom at the one house, and the man has the gun to the boy's head, like getting ready to kill them both because he doesn't think they're going to get out of there, and they just happen to get lucky that those fucking hicks got distracted by something, and they're able to run out.
They want to do that is because we're led to believe very much that if they don't, then they're going to get kept alive to be eaten or raped.
Yeah,
or both.
Charlize says, and as the movie progresses, we get to see really the fire dim and dim and dim until it's basically gone in Mortensen, in the man's character, and the boy by the end is pretty much like, I think that's the scene after they meet the guy who steals their cart on the beach. And Mortensen strips him down and makes him give him all of his stuff, and the boy is begging him not to do that. He's gonna die out there, and Mortensen's like, I don't give a shit. Like, he stole from us. He's gonna feel the same way we did. Yeah. To me, that's where it was like, okay, this is where the man needs to die. Because he's lost his humanity completely, and the boy now, if he has any hope of not also turning into that, needs to, take that next step, because he still has the fire.
Yeah. And you can tell, like, the man has had, like, his foot in both camps for so long and has tried to be, like, the thing. Like, he sees the fire in the boy and is like, I have to do everything that I can to protect this because the world needs it. I mean, and I think that really, like, there's there's a lot of things that point to kind of him feeling this way, especially his conversation with Robert Duvall's character around kind of like him being like his god, you know?
Yeah, it is a very, and again, just like in the movie that we're going to be talking about after this, there's this whole kind of almost like Christ-like or Messiah-like element to where like he's protecting this flame because this boy is potentially like not necessarily is going to be a savior to humanity as in all the people in the world, but he is
the last bastion of hope for
humanity as the concept of being a human being and having compassion and empathy for other people. He is one of the last, like you said, the last bastions of that. And so when we finally get to the end of the movie, and the father passes away, which is fucking heartbreaking just through the performances, and then we find out that this family, Guy Pearce's family, him and his wife and his 2 kids, have been kind of following them for a while, which we suspected. They kind of make you think like, oh, maybe the kid's seeing things, because at one point he sees the boy and chases after him in the neighborhood. And
we also hear the dog when they're in the underground bunker with all the food.
Yeah, we find out that they've been following them because they were concerned that, you know, something might happen to the dad and then the boy would be in danger. And so they've been kind of keeping an eye on them and following them. And then we understand part of where Mortensen's paranoia throughout the movie comes, because toward the end, every person, because he's just unraveling and he's
like,
starving.
why are you following
He's starving
us?
To death. But yeah, when he shoots the flare at the guy in the window, he runs in and he's like, why are you following us? And the lady's like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Like,
You're
nobody was
following us.
Yeah. And so it shows that like everybody in this world is so paranoid that they're constantly being followed or hunted, that they're just all losing their minds. And it turned out they were being followed, but by people who cared about them. And we think, and that's what I was getting to, is that we finally get to the end of the movie and we are kind of, you're left up to your own interpretation of what's going to happen next, if there is any hope for the world, or if it's just going to be like the sad decline of the last few humans. We know all the trees are falling and all of that stuff, and we don't even get like with a lot of these apocalypse movies, we've gotten like at the end there's a plant growing to show like, you know, that there's some hope. It's like, no, really the only hope here is that the boy is able to not be raped and eaten, and he's able to be safe and play with some other kids and maybe grow up in the closest thing that would be a normal life in this new situation. But he has the benefit of never having known the world before, so he kind of gets to come into it with fresh eyes. And Guy Pearce, even though he looks like he's wearing Spirit Halloween hillbilly teeth and you know, hasn't showered ever in his entire life, he says that he's carrying the fire. I love that moment too, where the boy asks him, are you carrying the fire? And at first he's like, what? And then he says the fire, and he like touches his chest, and then they kind of have that understanding, and he goes, yeah. And then he tells him that they have kids around his age, and
he lets him keep the gun.
Yeah, he's like, I don't want your gun, I just don't want you pointing it at me.
Good. Yeah, but
but it really, you get to interpret. If you're a glass half full person, then you can say, oh, I'm glad that the boy was saved and wasn't left alone, and that he'll hopefully grow up happy. And then if you're a glass half empty sort of person, you're like, well, I mean, there's no coming back from this. It's something awful's going to happen in the road to
Electric Boogaloo.
The Reckoning.
But like I said, overall, I think that the movie is still great. It still really stands out, especially in these post-apocalyptic movies. I love, like we said, the way that it handles not explaining how the apocalypse happened.
And we had talked about previously, like one way that the movie differentiates itself from the book is that we get a lot more time with the mother, and we get a lot more of that backstory. And I think that is beneficial for like viewing. I think it makes a lot more sense. It helps you connect with the man, and it helps you understand the hardships that they've gone through. So he has a kid, right? He's going through the apocalypse. Then he loses his wife, and then he has to deal with, like, he's got a lot on his plate too. And I think that really helps us understand where he's coming from. And then the flashbacks, I know you mentioned that we get flashbacks to during the apocalypse, but then we also get flashbacks from before with their life
of kind of them falling in love, and those are the really brightly colored, highly saturated, that shows kind of this is what the world used to be beautiful, and then we get those harsh cuts back to the way the world is now.
So I don't think that we needed a ton more there. I think that the amount that they gave us was perfect,
and
we just got the snippets where it explains enough for you to feel the pain without getting too far into it.
And the short amount of time that Charlize Theron spends in this film is fucking incredible.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I guess they wanted to put recordings of an actual woman giving birth over her like miming screaming, and she was like, no, I'll do it myself. And that's harrowing hearing her do that. And then I think it's weird to have people like Charlize Theron, Guy Pearce, Robert Duvall in these movies, and for the brief moments that they're there, they're excellent, all of them, but especially Duvall. I think his little bit as Eli the old man is heartbreaking.
The
when he's
only
talking about
named
his
character
son
in the
and,
entire thing, right?
yeah, how he had a son, and when he saw the boy, he thought he was an angel. All of that is super powerful. And then, Charlize is fantastic in the little bit that she's in. But yeah, I think because you don't get the benefit of being in the kind of first-person experiential format of reading the book, the flashbacks help add a little bit more connective tissue. And then there's a narration, which I know that even Vigo said he had a problem with doing in the beginning, but pretty much every line of narration is just a direct line from the book. So that, and I think that without it,
Might feel
you
a
would have
little
had
more
even
empty.
more of a disconnect from his character, especially with the way that he acts. Like you would have maybe thought he was more of an asshole.
Yeah.
Just coming into this world from the outside, but because you get to hear his inner thoughts and what he's going through, it also helps not have us have like a really long expositionary scene at the beginning or a crawl that tells us where the world is. He just in a few lines in the beginning says like, there were fires on the
Animals
hills,
dead,
and
trees are
animals
falling.
dead, trees are falling, pets' heads are falling off.
Yeah.
They don't have any jobs.
You had 2 pairs of gloves this whole time.
Boy, your hands are freezing.
But yeah, that's about all I got to say about that. But I would highly recommend both roads
Yeah.
and the road less traveled.
Yeah.
That's going to be the sequel.
Yeah,
Road less traveled.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I recommend it both too.
Yeah, I'll say I also recommend the book, but I do recommend the movie. I think that
you recommend the first 20 pages of the book.
yeah, definitely. But yeah, I think that it does a really great job of depicting a bleak situation where there's almost no hope, but still just giving you just that tiny little spark.
Yeah,
And that's enough to get you through.
the perseverance of man.
Yep.
Speaking of that, let's talk about Children of Men.
Let's talk about Children of Men, directed by Alfonso Cuarón. Is that how you say it?
Yep.
Of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
Yeah, he
and
also
Gravity fame.
had a hand in the screenplay with Timothy J. Sexton, David Arata, Mark Fergus, and Hawk Ostby.
Ooh, lots of
Head
cooks
of
in
the
that
editing
kitchen.
room as well, I believe.
That he did, yes, with Alex Rodriguez. This one's also based on a book, same name, by P.D. James. And this one
PD,
stars
not PD.
Yeah.
Clive Owen, Julianne Moore, Mark Cocaine.
Mark, okay.
Okay.
I said it's Ruby, the size of a tangerine.
What's the other dude's name?
Oh, Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Yep, and Charlie Hunnam, kind of.
Sort of.
Yeah, so that's the background. John, you want to give us the basic plot of this one too?
Yeah, so
You know what? Actually, I'm going to take this one.
Okay.
You got the last one.
Yeah.
Let's keep it balanced, okay? So in Children of Men, we find ourselves in the year 2027. Yeah.
Yep.
And I think the road was supposed to be 2024, so we're getting close to both of these. But in the year 2027, the world has found itself in a pretty nasty situation because it turns out ain't no more kids being born. The world is infertile, and
There hasn't been a new child in 18 years and some change.
yeah. And when the movie opens, the last natural-born human
The youngest person alive.
has just been murdered, and
Somebody looked at that person's brother and was like, wrong kid died.
yeah. So Clive Owen plays kind of a man in the system, sort of bureaucrat, disillusioned guy, and he is through a series of events roped into helping a
Some would say unfortunate events.
series of unfortunate events to help a sort of resistance group and similar to the road, a messiah-like figure being brought
Theo
into the
Farron
world.
is his
Yeah,
name.
Theo. So this is much like Viggo Mortensen. This is a movie that's mad slept on.
Yeah.
Because this movie is a masterpiece.
It's
fucking excellent.
One of the greatest science fiction films ever created.
And I think it'll be pretty difficult to talk about this going forward without too many spoilers. So let's all say whether or not we recommend. I mean, I already said it's a masterpiece. I highly recommend this. I don't know enough about the book outside of the basic differences between these to recommend that, but I will definitely say check out Children of Men if you've never seen it. It's, to me, one of the best science fiction movies
Not only that, it's
ever made.
one of the best movies ever made. Like, it's a great movie outside of the science fiction stuff.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It was slept on at its year's Academy Awards. I know that it got pushed to the side for Martin Scorsese's bid to finally actually get an Oscar. But yep,
it lost to editing and cinematography and adapted.
Yep, and then wasn't nominated even for Best Picture, which is a fucking crying shame. But I highly recommend it. Like I said, this is one of my favorite movies. It's really great, and I would suggest to go watch it right now. And if you have already watched it, you should go on YouTube and watch the car scene again, because that scene's just fucking a masterclass.
Yeah, so we get a lot of staple Alfonso Cuarón editing and cinematography in this. Some absolutely breathtaking one take, in quotes, shots, which is just what most movies do. I actually, when I was watching The Invisible Man last night, I did not realize how many one take shots were in that movie. And on top of that, I didn't realize how many of those, pretty much all of them, are insane, seamless, stitched together one take shots where it would be Elizabeth Moss, like, you know, when she's in the institution running through one hallway, and when she runs past the camera through a door, they're in a completely different location where they're filming, and then she would run down the stairs and turn a corner past the camera, and they'd be in a third different location that they filmed in.
Shit.
Stitching it all together. And that's how this movie kind of pulls off some of these insane one take shots. The one that this movie is probably most famous for, like John said, is the car scene where we get like a 360
so there's
camera inside the car.
5 people sitting in a car, 2 in the front and 3 in the back, and there's a camera in the car the whole time, and it's like a big chase scene, and the camera's not stationary, it's constantly moving, so it's fucking crazy.
Yeah, and they had to build like from scratch a special stunt car where all of the seats could move out of the way of the camera for each, like, wherever the camera needed to go inside the car. And then on top of that, I think they cut, part of the roof out for the camera, and then all of the windows could pivot out of the car.
Pivot.
And then the windshield could move out of the car as well, so that they could move the camera wherever they needed it to go within there. Absolutely insane, but it just adds so much tension to the scene and really puts you in that, like, POV feeling of the scene. And also something that Cuarón really wanted to push with this was the kind of like wartime documentary footage aspect of it, and you get a lot of that, especially toward the end when it's mostly Clive Owen like running through buildings that are exploding and gunfires going off everywhere. But you also get the long one take birth scene, which is they did with, I guess, an animatronic baby. They had built a whole prosthetic for the key character that could actually like birth out this animatronic baby, but then they ended up replacing the baby with CG, and I guess that was like a big CG milestone at the time, was the CG baby that's in the movie.
Should have done that for American Sniper.
Yeah,
and then you get the long one at the end that has the infamous blood on the camera that everybody thought was like an amazing touch and turned out was a complete accident. And Cuarón was trying to call cut when he saw that it had happened, but the explosions and gunfire were so loud that nobody heard him, and they just filmed the entire thing. And good, because it's
a fantastic scene. It really is. I also there's just some subtle moments in this movie that I think are fantastic. So I don't think we've said the word spoilers, but we are in spoiler territory, so I'll put it up on the screen again just in case. But spoilers. After the car scene, and they park off, and they pull Julianne Moore's corpse out of the car. There's a scene where Clive Owen is walking away, and then like he's like trying to pretend like everything's all right, and then just immediately breaks down into tears, and and you could see the tears falling off of him, and like it's so subtle, and then it's there, and then it's gone, and he's right back.
I felt really sorry for him the whole movie because the dude does not get a chance to finish a single cigarette that he tries to smoke.
I'll throw that out.
Yeah, I know. It's like in that scene, like he'll go light a cigarette and somebody will interrupt him, and he just throws it on the ground, puts it out.
Yeah.
Dude cannot finish a cigarette to save his life or to end his life. Cigarettes are terrible for you, but
the performances in this movie are just fucking fantastic. Him, Michael Caine's really great in this.
Being a total whack job too, which I think is really fun. Like he gets to be a farting stoner who listens to like
Pull my
Aphex
finger.
Twins and like he's hilarious and also
Strawberries, isn't it?
yeah, strawberry cough. Which apparently is an actual strain of weed, and I'd like to try to hunt it down and find it and have a little Children of Men night. But yeah, so even him, like as goofy as his character is, he has a heartbreaking scene of sacrifice. And yeah, I don't know Clive Owen from too much, but I mean, I thought that he was excellent in this. Like I don't think I could name another movie that I know Clive Owen from. Like I'm sure I've seen him in a bunch of stuff.
Sin City.
But yeah, okay, Sin City. But yeah, I think he's excellent in this, and the way that this movie like doesn't beat you over the head with the religious imagery, similar to what I was saying with The Road, where like there's obviously a lot of religious symbolism and imagery going into the movie, and I guess that was a huge part of the book. Like that was the main kind of thing about the book was that it was a big like religious kind of allegory. And in this, he wanted to kind of tone it down so that it didn't feel like it was, again, beating you over the head with it. But you have the key character, the word key even is supposed to be a play on the idea of not only is it key as in like a life force, but also like she is the key to humanity's salvation. So you get that. But she is pretty much like a Virgin Mary character, and she even makes a joke about when he asks who the father is, and she was like, oh, I'm a virgin, and then laughs about it. But when he first sees her, it's in a stable. First thing he says when he sees that she's pregnant is Jesus Christ. Whenever anybody later in the movie sees the baby, they're either saying Jesus or they're doing the cross, the cross, the sign of the cross.
They also fold in a ton of other religious elements from other major religions, though, too, which I think is really great. There's, obvious,
tons of characters speaking like, talking about like speaking in Arabic and all kinds of different languages and doing passages from Buddhist texts and things. And so it's a whole hodgepodge of different religious imagery, but then also a lot of social commentary. So obviously the big overarching social commentary is about how we treat refugees, about terrorist groups. At the time that this was made, I think London had just had a terrorist bombing from Al Qaeda. So obviously very relevant hot button issue. And then also things like they touch on imagery that's very evocative of the Holocaust. So yeah, there's just a lot of very contemporary stuff that goes into the book, but then all this kind of like more ancient primitive religious stuff that goes into it also. And again, he's kind of Theo is kind of a Joseph character who's trying to protect Mary, until she can birth the savior of humanity.
Yeah. I do also think that I think where this film shines is that it doesn't do things to hold your hand. Like, it tells the story in visuals and visuals alone. Never is there dialogue that explains kind of the process. It's all obviously there are discussions, and there is some storytelling that's done through the characters themselves, but most of it's done just in subtle moments. And it's not there's a moment where they're riding on a bus headed towards trying to break into refugee prison, and one of them is pulled off. Not in the Thor's hammer sort of way.
Not tugged off, yeah.
And
What kind of bus I need to get on?
and it's immediately apparent that she's being taken off to be executed, and that she had made this effort and kind of made a stink in this moment to sacrifice herself to protect Key and protect the savior of humanity. And there are so many subtle moments that are like that, where there's not a lot is discussed, but because you watched it, because you paid attention, you know exactly what's happening. And I think that's truly beautiful filmmaking.
Yeah, Quran has a lot of his quotes about the making of this movie are about how much he hates exposition scenes, and how much he feels that cinema has just become a slave to exposition, because most studio heads and a lot of filmmakers feel like the audience is idiots, and so they feel like they need you have to put in a scene that is explaining this, or we have to have an opening crawl that goes on for 5 minutes, or a narration over the whole thing that explains what's going on. And the fact that he was able to make this and put his foot down and say, no, I'm going to give people information visually, because that's the magic of the cinematic medium, is that you can give people information visually and you don't need to hold their hand. And
show them, don't tell them.
And we've talked about that a million times over not just the course of this podcast, but our just
lives
being
in general.
Friends and watching movies is just, I love a movie that makes you, where you have to actually put a little bit of effort to follow along, but it rewards you because you feel so much more like you're in the world. And especially with a sci-fi thing, like I think it's so much better if you can just drop me in like I'm with the characters, and then I get to discover the world as they're...
As long as it's not overly convoluted, yeah. Like, this movie is doable.
Well, it's not so... I mean, it feels like something that could potentially happen in real life. Like, it's not so far-fetched that you
It's not like
need...
watching fucking Upstream Color, and you're like, what the fuck did I
Yeah,
just
you need an
watch?
entire scientific model explained for you.
I had a ton of fun watching that fucking movie, though.
Right, but it's like that's outside of the movie work that you have to do.
Well, and that's trying to make that wants you to sit down for several hours after and pick the whole thing apart. I think once,
or like when we watched Green Knight, like we had to, there was
do
so
research on the
little
actual legend,
so
to
little
understand.
storytelling that took place in that movie,
But-
where we had to fucking become like fucking PhDs in fucking like
Arthurian
Arthurian
legends,
tales.
yeah.
Yeah,
This is a good middle ground between those two ideas, where it's like overly explained and not explained enough.
yeah.
This is like, you're gonna have to do some work, but we're still gonna give you all the pieces you need.
Yeah, and I don't know how much the book... I mean, it's written, so obviously it's all describing things to you, but it also seems like it's a lot more complicated. The way the book... It's like there's weird minor changes. So in the movie, the idea... I forget which way it is. So in the movie, is it that men are infertile?
No, it's women are infertile.
Women are infertile. In the book, it's that
I think
men...
are sterile.
Sterile, yeah. In the book, it's specifically that men are no longer producing sperm, and
Which would make more sense in like our society, like oh yeah, my phone's next to my nuts all the time.
yeah, and then like that's the South Park like
Yeah.
giant balls episode, and then the way that their society works is that anybody who is young, so anybody like the guy who dies in the beginning of the movie, anybody who's young, they're called like the Omegas because they're the last young people.
Yeah.
But they're treated like basically gods. Like they can do whatever the fuck they want and they don't get in trouble, and they are basically the like bad guys of the book. Because they're always like causing problems and riots and stuff. And so if you're in the UK and you're an Omega, so you're young, you're not allowed to leave because they need you as workforce. So all the refugees are not only older people, but young Omegas from other places who are coming there to find work. And basically you work until you're 65, and you either have the choice to do the quietus and kill yourself. And this is the option for everybody. You get to like the age 65 and you can either kill yourself or they ship you off. Like they force you to leave.
Wow. Because they don't want to support you through using their resources.
Yeah, and you're no longer useful for the limited resources that they have. And it's
one thing that we haven't really mentioned is that this one, although it's post-apocalyptic or whatever, end of the world style, it doesn't feel like something like The Road or like the Hunger Games where it's totally different. When we're in London in 2027, it's still fully functioning. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's part of what is scary about this movie. It's like, we are humanity and we know we're going to end. The end is like legitimately in sight.
Yeah, instead of an asteroid hits the Earth or there's a nuclear holocaust, this is, to me, like you said, way scarier because it's the slow creeping apocalypse.
It's the longest form of apocalypse possible.
Yeah, you're having to really like soak in it as it's happening, and really, and so that's where the interesting thing is that you get to see how society is breaking down and also trying to cope with this idea that they're no longer going to have, like, everybody's just going to die out because they can't have children. And that's why then the impact later after the baby is born, and you see how all these people who have been like shooting at each other and fighting, they start just in awe of the baby because they haven't seen one in forever, and and
they just stopped the gunfire.
Yeah, it's such a big fucking deal. It reminds me of that story of, like, I think it was America and Germany fighting during one of the world wars, and it got to Christmas Day, and they both, like, it must have been World War I because I think they were in trenches, and they, like, both got out of the trenches, and, like, were like, hey, it's Christmas, and like came together and shook hands and
My
stopped
God.
fighting just for Christmas Day. That's kind of what that scene reminded me of. But yeah, to me, that's a way more interesting, because we've seen the whole post-apocalypse, everything's destroyed, how are people surviving thing so many times, but rarely do you see the like slow, drawn out, how is society
Like devolving.
as the apocalypse is approaching.
I think that would also be an interesting story. Like, yeah, we have the kid and there's like hope, but what if there wasn't? Like, what does it look like when we start getting to the end of the world and we're aware of it? I feel like that would also be a really good story and fucking scary, because it's like, well, if this is the last kid born, we have maybe 90 years left before humanity's gone.
Jesus Christ, this last kid born.
But yeah, like I think that I agree that this is like a terrifying scenario, and because it feels so possible.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the magic of why this film works so well, is just that it seems wholly realistic, and that like they don't do any crazy, even though it was meant to be like 15, 20 years in the future from when it was created, it doesn't do anything that pushes it so far outside where it wouldn't make sense. Like, there are some little things that are different. Like, there was like a little like HUD on the windshield of the car and things like that, but it doesn't push things so far into like unbelievable territory.
Yeah, even the cars just look like regular modern day cars, but with like some extra plastic and random shit like strapped onto them, taped onto them, all hodgepodge. Yeah, and I think that the amount of detail that went into this that you wouldn't even notice too is insane. I mean, you were talking about the subtleties of the performance, but the detail in like the scene toward the beginning when he first gets like kidnapped by Julianne Moore's group, and they have him in that room that's covered in newspaper. They had to go through and manufacture all of the headlines on all the newspapers and everything to make sure that it all was part of this world. They couldn't just stick up random newspapers and stuff.
Yeah.
But much like The Road, I think what also works really well about this and makes it feel not so far-fetched is that very little digital work outside of stitching long cuts together and baby. But it's filmed in real locations in like you said, like London. It mostly feels like fully functioning, but I think a lot of that comes from the fact that this was made pretty shortly after Hurricane Katrina happened, so there was a lot of reference to look at, and like 75% of the crew on this were people who survived Katrina and had been through it, and so had that firsthand expertise of like really what a place devolving into absolute chaos looks like.
Yeah.
And then similar, again, to The Road, a lot of parallels between these stories for sure, at least the movie versions. The ending is kind of up for your interpretation. The ship is called the Tomorrow. We're led to believe, even though Theo the entire time does not really believe that this like human project exists. And so we're kind of, it's ambiguous if if it really exists, and if it is everything they say, again, very I Am Legend, where it's just like, does it really exist? Is there really a cure? And
guess we'll find out.
Yeah. And you get to the end with Theo dead on the boat. All he's been able to teach Key is how to burp the baby because it's got wind, and the ship coming up, and you don't know, like, is it going to turn out that they are these amazing sanctuary for her and the baby? Are they going to see the baby and immediately try to do what the fishes did and try to like take the baby for their own uses and kill everybody involved? So yeah, again, depends on what your
take
own
the
personal,
baby, get rid of her, or flaunt it as like a
Jesus
British
type figure, or a British Christ or something, or maybe there's some organization that doesn't want humanity to procreate and would kill it. So I mean, it really depends on what your own, again, glass half full, glass half empty perspective is, whether you feel that there is hope beyond this story or not, or whether it's really just about the journey and the friends we made along the way and who died along the way.
All her friends died along the way. Stay away from her.
Because literally everybody but the baby, they're all dead.
That's crazy.
Yeah. All my friends are dead. Children of men.
I enjoy it though. I thought it was great. It was my first time remembering I watched it.
Yeah.
Because I had seen it before.
I'm kind of the same way. Like, this was my first time really where all the pieces locked into place, because I had seen it before, but and also I think it just helps that I'm also at a place now where when I'm watching a movie, I am really paying attention to the cinematography and how things are filmed and how this specific director is communicating the information to me and like all that nerd shit that you guys like to listen to us talk about. But yeah, this is where it really clicked for me. Like, oh yeah, this is one of the best movies ever, and also just one of the best sci-fi movies. So
Yeah.
recommend it.
Yeah, recommend it for me too.
100%.
So do we want to announce what our plans for?
Plans and such.
Yeah, so next week we are going to continue with CAMPOCALYPSE. We're going to talk about Armageddon and Deep Impact. Is that right?
Yep.
Deep.
And because California is deep in a heat wave, we're going to end summer camp early.
Yeah, we're tired of summer camp because it's too hot.
Sweating balls.
No, I mean, as everybody listening knows, we are winding down the show into our final stretch. We're going into the soon to be penultimate month and then the final month. So we talked about it a little bit, and as much as we love doing the camp thing, we want to get into some stuff we've wanted to talk about for basically the entire 5 seasons we've been doing the show.
Wrap up misses and get into movies that we haven't covered yet. And just kind of, whatever we want.
Kind of wing it and do whatever the fuck we want. Yep. So it's going to be real loosey-goosey, but I think people are going to really enjoy it because we're going to be talking about stuff that we're all like really passionate about. Movies that, I'm not going to reveal my secrets yet, but I'm pretty stoked about a couple of my picks.
All right, then. Keep your secrets.
Yeah. I mean, we're sharing a note, so you can all see. You guys know the secrets. They don't know the secrets. But yeah, so get excited for that. But yeah, we are going to be talking about Armageddon and Deep Impact, which I think is just a real explosive way to end CAMPOCALYPSE.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we couldn't go without getting those in.
Yeah. And definitely don't skip out on that episode because I'll tell you one thing: you don't want to miss a thing.
What is that?
It's like parts of the song.
Oh, okay. Cool. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. We hope that you enjoyed that, and we will see you next time. I have been Tone, Counselor Tone.
Counselor John.
And I have been a children of a man.
A children?
I've been a children of a man.
Child.
I've been a child of a man. What man? And I have also been counselor, internet, daddy, darling, Anthony.
I was thinking about this earlier, and if you're daddy, then I would like to be the father, and then obviously you get to be Papa.
Yeah.
Papa John.
Papa John!
See you next week.
Keep it campy.
Love it.